Hello, guys, and welcome to Getting TOON today. I have a very fun day planned for us, so let us start with how I always start all my streams, my introduction. All right, first thing I want to say before we begin is please let me know in the comments if my fans are too loud today. I don't have air conditioning in my studio. It's kind of muggy out. I'm trying to cool off. If it's too loud, though, let me know. I'll turn off one of them. So what I have planned for us today is to create fantasy characters. I wanted to talk about that for a few reasons. One, last night, if you did not check it out, go check out my interview with Rene Pfitzner, who is an Australian cartoonist and creates fantasy comics. It was a fun interview. It's about an hour long, and you can find it on my YouTube page here. Excuse me. That was a fantastic interview, and it inspired me to do tons and tons of more fantasy, which I love to draw anyway. So I want to talk about a few things, though. Like, what is fantasy? We're going to look at things like dragons and mythological creatures, and where do we get ideas for that? For me, I get it from lots of different places, but I like the genre of fantasy. I'm a big fan of things like Lord of the Rings. I like, let me turn a light on here. I feel I'm a little dark in here. I love, like I said, I love Lord of the Rings. Growing up, I loved video games like, oh God, here it is. This big book, Zelda Art and Artifacts. So I have a bunch of these art of books that show a lot of different artwork and concept art, you know, that I'll look through, you know. I love, ooh, this one's heavy, Dungeons and Dragons. All right, this is the art of D&D, the art and so, like, I can go through here and look at pictures that were like classic images that talk about the characters and that advertise the artwork. And I mean, you can see that beautiful dragon right there. And, you know, so, you know, I'll look at things like that. If you're a fan of video games that like Blizzard makes, right? I have Blizzard's art of books, and it's all about their fantasy art. So I look at these things for inspiration. I also look at old cartoons that I grew up on. For example, I have the art of He-Man and the Masters of the Universe. This was a cartoon that was huge and popular when I was a kid. They've done a few revamps of that. There's actually a revamp coming, I believe it's next year, to Netflix. But here I can go through and see the different pieces, and there's Skeletor, you know, and imagery, and She-Ra's in here because she was He-Man's twin sister. So like I go and I look at these inspirations. I look at things, you know. This is a book from the Hildebrandt brothers, right? Both of them, yeah. Oh no, this is, was this for, yeah, Greg and Tim Hildebrandt. Art of back in the 70s, they did a lot of work on Lord of the Rings stuff, and I can see in here they talk about where they used reference material to draw the guy, and I use tons and tons of reference material all the time. So looking through these books, fantastic ways to get inspired. Watching cartoons, reading books on fantasy. Another great book, and I'm going to do obviously all age, kid friendly stuff because that's what I draw. But we can look at a book like the Smurfs here. Where's that shines in there? And look at this. This one's called Monsters. And you got this little, right there, mushroom character, this little kind of, I don't know what he is, like trollish, elfish monster. You know, all kid-friendly stuff. We look at the back cover here, and we got this kind of, what is he, like an ogre style on this side. And we got a carrot monster. So you can turn things into anything, you know. I pulled up a few images to look at. And we're going to start with, I think, what everybody thinks of when they think of fantasy stories. And that is dragons. So I pulled pictures from How to Train Your Dragon. Why? Whoops. I didn't share the screen. Give me a second. I shared pictures from How to Train Our Dragon. Why did I choose How to Train Our Dragon? Or Your Dragon, sorry. Because, number one, they did something that I really love with their dragons. They made them all kind of different, so they don't have always that traditional look to them. But two, we can see how they're based on other types of animals and combining animals together, which is kind of how dragons, kind of were created. So if I come over here and I'm on my brush here, we've talked about the shapes. So he's got these shapes right here, right? He's got the body. That's not a big deal right there. We know how to draw the characters by now. And it's two rectangles. They come out a little wide, right? This one should have stopped there and came out wider, right? So we're just kind of keeping the shapes. But when you watch Toothless is based on a cat. That's why there's two images of him here. All right? This is Toothless standing that I drew over. But here, look at that. Look at how he's down and getting ready to, looks like he's getting ready to strike. If you have a cat or ever watched any type of video about some kind of feline, whether it's a simple house cat all the way up to like a tiger or something, this is how they hunt. They crouch down, they look, observe their prey, and then they strike. So, we look at these different ones. This guy right here, one of my all-time favorites. What does he look like but a frog, right? So, he's got these eyes off on the side like kind of frogs have. He's got this big mouth like a frog, right? And his legs kind of come out just like how a frog's legs would come out. You see that? And all they do are add wings to it, add horns. So drawing a dragon, is just the idea of combining some animals together. Like this one, I've always saw, this could be a few different types, but I always kind of saw a pig. He's kind of got this big round piece here. His nose would be right here. His eyes are together. So I kind of saw a pig when I looked at that. Did they base off a pig? I don't know. I don't have a How to Train Your Dragon art of book, which I'm surprised I don't and have to get. All right. So I'm not going to go through all these here, but I just want you to be aware when I'm looking at this stuff and I'm creating a dragon, what features will I pull from, right? And because this is going to be kind of an all ages thing, what if I was to do kind of like a cartoon dog, right? So here's the shape I'm going to use for my dog. Now this would be where his nose would be, right at the edge. This is his muzzle. But instead, because he's kind of lizard-like, I want him to have that lizard-like feel. I'm going to create some bumps in here. I'm going to give him that pointy, the nostrils off like that. I'm going to put his eyes over here, and even, you might not be able to tell, but I'm going to kind of make him look a little angry here, right? Now I'm going to bring his mouth down and leave his mouth like so. And you know what? I think what might be fun with his mouth is maybe add a big tooth like that. And then we can come up and down with his teeth. Maybe I'll have a few that are down like that, not all over the place, but you can see. So I got this idea of my head. Dragons always have kind of horns and bumps, right? I'm going to draw a couple of lines like that to show some wrinkles in him. Maybe I'll do Maybe I'll give him some kind of like ear-like piece here. But really what this is going to be are points coming out, and maybe what I'll do is I'll curve the lines in other directions. So this is almost like a fin or something that that some kind of lizard would have, right? All right, maybe he's got a couple of horns coming up, and these little curved lines I'm putting is kind of some wrinkles going on, and I'll show one in the back, and I'll also show a bit of his fin there. Now, I got to think, does he have a long neck? Does he have a short neck? What kind of animal am I going to combine? So I started off with a dog's head, at least in shape. And now what I'm going to do is I think maybe I'm going to give him a short type of body, almost still thinking like a dog, right? Which is this bean-shaped body that I would cartoon with. And what I might want to do is look at types of lizards. And when I look at the lizards, and I'm not going to look at them now, but when I look at the lizards, and if I bring back up, oops, that's the horse. We're going to look at that in a moment. If we look at this, and I see the texture of where is it here? The texture of these bumps here, of the scales. If I look at, I can see wrinkles in scale. If I look at how the legs go, they're kind of thin, and then they pop out a bit, So maybe that's what I'll do with his legs. And on his front legs, maybe they come out off the body and come down. And on this one, maybe they kind of look like they're going. Actually, I don't like that. So what I'll do is I'll have them come out, and I'll have them go back like that. So you see what I got going on here? So already, this doesn't look like anything that would be in our, normal life, but I'm taking stuff. I'm taking things that I like, although I got to be honest, I'm not a huge lizard fan, but I love drawing creatures like this here, right? And maybe I'll come out a little bit on their feet so that I could easily add claws. So the claws would come off 1, 2, maybe the other one's over here. So it's 1, 2, you won't see the other one. Okay. And now I got to think about a tail. Well, I like the idea of a long, well, not super long, but a long, like, lizard-like tail. So I'm going to have it come out like that. I'm going to erase this extra shape I made here. Okay. Now, adding wings. Where do wings come out on these creatures? Or anywhere, you got to think about a shoulder blade. So if this is the leg, and I'm going to just draw it very lightly, the bone would come out around here, and this would be where the shoulder blade is, right? Because this is where the knee or the elbow would be, right? So I'm going to erase that and just kind of remember that area. It doesn't have to be perfectly in there, but I'm going to say like right around here, and the wings are going to come up. And how do we make wings? Well, when we do kind of like lizard-style dragon wings, what we like to do is kind of use the idea almost of a bat wing, So I got the strong bone line here, and then I'm going to create some, what do they call it? Pieces, and they can, some other lines coming out. So I can draw from the center point here that everything's coming out of the center point, or I could draw it from that they're just all in different places. So what I'm going to do is whoops, wrong line I wanted to erase. I want to erase this line here. And so I'm going to thicken up this one. And I don't have to, you know, I'm just making it thick. Doesn't have to have the same thickness as this top bone I made, right? Because what I'm going to do now is I'm going to just add some curved lines to it. And you can see here now he's got, whoops, sorry. Went the wrong way on that line. And he's got his wings, right? And we can play around with it. You can always change things. And now the idea is to let's add some texture. I already added a little texture around the knees, but I'll do that on the other side too. You know, I like the idea of adding some spikes to the tail. So we can have, right? I always like to do kind of an underbelly on these type of creatures to really show that lizard quality to it. And what I'm doing is I'm creating another look underneath, you know, another level, so it looks like it would be two different skin colors, so, or claw colors. So that's the underbelly. I got that there. And if you want, just for quickness, add these couple of U's together. It doesn't always have to be in threes like that, but that will show scales. But we can add little circles together. These can be like warts or just bumps on them. You know, maybe put a few dots in places. You know, like he might have a rougher texture. You know, maybe he does have, I don't know. We can figure out. Maybe I'm going to change his mouth. I've been looking at it, and I really don't like that tooth right there. But what I would like to do is fix his nose as well. And you see here I'm playing around. I'm constantly changing things up, which is okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring this in, and I think I'm going to put a horn right there, almost like he's got that rhinoceros, triceratops type of look to him. And that is one type of dragon. Let's do another dragon. This one will be a little easier. Let's, you know what I want to do? Hold on, let me select all. Whoops, wrong page. Give me a second. There we go. Select all. And let me go. Line this out a bit. Commit T. There we go. So I'm just going to scale them down. I'm going to move them over here so we can see it, right? Now let's think of another type of dragon and we'll do a different type of pose that looks that'll obviously look different. So I used a dog the first time. I can think about a cat if I wanted to. I could think about a cow, you know, and use different features from them. But let's try something difficult. What if I had to make a dragon out of a mouse? You know, it's a real tiny looking creature, right? But what's the shape of a mouse? So we start with a circle for the head, right? And we might even want to add some kind of triangular feature on it. And I'm going to turn his body. So his body's going to be small and turned like that. And I'm just going to add the circles for the ears, but they're probably going to get erased, right? So they also have real tiny feet, right? So he's looking backwards, or she's looking backwards. And let's think about how I would attack this. How would I attack a creature like a mouse? And again, you can add something to it if you want, a different creature. So I took a mouse, and what if I added What if I added a duck to it? Right? That could be interesting because ducks could fly. And maybe I would decide that their feet are going to be more duck-like. And now, they're small, but because they're duck-like, they're good swimmers. So they can have their webbed feet like so. But again, add claws to it. Or at least make them a little sharper, right? We can have, let's do, when we look at a duck, their eyes are on the side, so maybe we can take the features of a duck like that, and I'm just going to make him look a little angry. He could be happy, it doesn't matter. And instead of the nose, I keep that lizard-like feel to him. I'll have his mouth open here like that. And maybe he'll have a big, long lizard tongue. All right. Let's color this in here. All right, let's give him some slots for a nose. I think I'm going to make his eyes out like so, right? I'll fix his arms too. But let's see, for a mouse, maybe I'm going to add some, spikes up here. It doesn't have to be a lot. I think I'm going to just kind of go like that. And I'm going to create, he's going to have a different, almost like Mickey Mouse. No, I don't like that. Creating these things and playing with fantasy is all about just using your imagination, but kind of pulling from what's around you. So I think for this, mice have kind of almost hand-like, if I remember. So I'm just making these claws. These claws are going to be out like so. All right, I like that underbelly feel, so I'm going to give him some texture for his underbelly to give it that lizard feel. I'm going to give him a long tail, but because he's supposed to be a good swimmer, I'm going to add like another webbed tail here. And this could have claws on it as well. And maybe his horns go all the way through his back, so since his head is turned, we're actually going to see some horns like that coming down. The traditional thing you do to a dragon, right? Okay. And I think for the ears, instead of having them out like this, I'm going to do what I did with the last dragon, the dog one. And we're going to these lines in there, and this is going to come up like so. So I didn't add any wings to him yet, but I could add wings coming off the back. I'll know the shoulder blades around here, so I know they're going to come out this way. And because he's in the feel of a duck as well, I can make these almost feather-like and add feathery textures to it. But I'm not going to do that because I really like this lizard feel. And by the way, I didn't say this, but when I changed his beak, this beak area from point his snout, I was thinking of a duck's bill. If you were to draw like a duck like that, can you see the bill? How I was thinking in my head. Okay. So I'm going to just kind of do the basic wings again. because you just want to keep it simple. And this wing might be coming in and covering some of the horns, as this wing is just going to be right here. Okay, and then you can come in with the texture, whatever texture you want. Sometimes texture could come in through coloring. And since this is the underbelly, it's going to go into the tail a little bit. All right. I might even add a nice horn or a point coming off of this here. You know, so I'm thinking about also what is my dragon's goal. So my dragon is supposed to be very tiny. I don't like those horns. He's supposed to be able to swim through water very well. I might even though he's got claws here, I might even web out his fingers. So he's a swimmer, you know. But he has the ability to fly outside. Maybe he breathes hot water at people or steam or something. All right, so that's a dragon. So when you guys practice your dragons, think about combining animals together and giving them wings. Or don't. Maybe it's a land dragon and it can't fly. Maybe it has too tiny of wings, you know, and it won't be able to fly that way. So, I'm sorry. So that is something to think about. And yes, you can draw traditional dragons. Let me just do something quick. You can do traditional dragons if you want to, where they kind of have more of that creepy look to it. And he's got the, you know, but the way these dragons were thought of originally anyway are based off animals, mostly larger lizards that you might have some kind of back to it, like a dinosaur here. Because when things are different from us, like these dragons with large lizard-like features, we're looking at things that would scare us. Anything larger than us scares us. If you watch horror movies, when something scary is going to happen, it usually has what we call what we call a worm's eye view angle. So if this is the screen or something, and you're down here, or the character is down here, and the monster, you're going to be looking up at the monster, and he's going to look large and intimidating, right? Because he's up here and I'm going to get you. And when we look up at things, it adds a little fear to us. So, and it just automatically, naturally scares us. So, something like that is what you want to think about when creating dragons. And this doesn't have to be in horror movies too. They use it in all types of movies. But when they want to add a little fear in the audience, they'll use this worm's eye view shot where we're looking up at stuff going on. So that's that. I want to draw one of my that's the dragons. I want to draw one of my favorite mythological creatures. It's what we call a centaur. A centaur is part horse, part human. So I have two images of a horse here. Okay, one's technically a pony. All right. We look at the real horse, and then we look at, who's that? Rainbow Dash I took out from My Little Pony. And I wanted to show you this because horses can be very difficult to draw. And when you're learning and you're sitting here and you're saying, okay, well, here's one muscle leg, here's another section, here's another section, and then here's another section, and then another. So there's 4 parts to the leg. In the front. In the back, we got this, which would be its hip. This, then it tapers down, Then you got this little ankle thing here, and then you got that. So you guys see how there's different sections to the horse. Now, and just so you know, the body is primarily like a bean shape. You can see that there. So what happened when they were redesigning My Little Pony, and you can see this here, they stylized the head, but we're not worrying about the head. We're looking at the body right now. And, you know, maybe having the wings wasn't such a good idea, but we can see going over that bean-shaped body because we know what My Little Pony characters look like, right? And if you look at how big and how flared out they made them here, right? All they did was stylize this, and what stylizing is, I'll change the color so we can see it a little better. What stylizing is, that may have not been the best color for me, in my eyes, being colorblind. Let's go to something a little bit more over in this range. All right. So what they did is they just what we call flared out. They took it here, flared out, and then they did the same thing back here. You see that? So it emulates this little piece here that would be popping out. They did the same thing with here. So instead of having just the circle and all these parts, what they did is they came and drew, and they made it short. I'm making it a little long to fit over the horse here, right? They stopped there, and then where the I guess this would be the knee joint where it kicks out, they kicked it out and stylized the rest. So it makes drawing horses easier. I'm not saying you have to draw My Little Pony style. There's people who don't like it. It's okay. There's people who want to do more of a realistic horse or find something in between. I just want you to understand that looking at these shapes here and the realistic aspects of these creatures, you know, there are ways to play tricks and shorten them and give them a look and feel all your own. So I'm going to take these off right now, and I'm going to start drawing my my satyr. Not satyr, sorry, my centaur. Satyr is a totally different type of mythological creature. So I'm going to get out my red pen. I'll use red for this. And I want to think about how my character is going to look. So I'm going to start with the head. And the reason why I made it this kind of rectangular shape is because horses' heads are basically rectangles. So if I was to look at a horse's head, you know, you can see this forming right there, right? And then the neck is going to come down into the body. Okay? So I want to think about that while I'm drawing. So I'm giving him a rectangular head, and it doesn't mean you have to follow my rules perfectly. All right? This is how I like to do it. And I'm going to give him the shape of a heroic, strong-looking human. I'll do his arms later. Right? Because now off of here is going to be that bean shape for the body. And you can make it however you want it to look. I'm just going to scale him down a bit. I won't be able to fit the legs. Okay. So what I'm going to do with these, whoops, sorry, I didn't realize I still had that selected. I'm going to go to the eraser a little bit. I want to get a larger eraser and whoops, undo. What happened? Eraser. Bring it larger. And there we go. And okay. And maybe I'll shorten that up a bit. Everything is a matter of preference and opinion. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to kind of use a little bit of that My Little Pony feel. But I'm not going to make it look exactly like My Little Pony. All right? I just want strong looking legs right now. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to add in a bit of where the hip would be, so I have some of that muscle. And I'm going to come in and do some, not erasing, but I'm going to add some kind of hair down at the bottom here. You know? So it adds that feeling of strength. And I'm going to come in and I'm going to come back just a little bit like, again, like how My Little Pony does it. Because I actually do like the style. I'm not a fan of the show or the comics, although they're beautifully done. It's just I'm not the target audience. And so if it's something you like, totally enjoy it. Okay? But what I've done by using their thought process on stylizing the horse here, the horse's body, what I'm doing is I'm adding power because I'm not looking at what they did. I'm looking at what I want to do and how it's going to affect my characters. Now, also they have tails because they're horses, and tails just kind of hang down, and that's too many lines. So when you're drawing a tail, or like this, they just kind of hang down, and draw out a shape, and don't add in lots of lines. Add in enough to kind of create the idea of a highlight, right? And then his arms would work the same way we would work any other arm. And there he is. And I'm going to put in his eyes, so let's give him some eyes right here. And he'll be looking out. He'll have a human nose. He'll have maybe a smile. I'm going to put his ear right here. He'll have eyebrows. And one of the other things I like to do when I'm drawing centaurs is give them a good head of hair, because horses should have beautiful manes, right? So I usually give them long hair on both sides, kind of going down. I might put them in ponytails or something like that. We know how to draw the hands already, so I'm not going to worry too much on that. And, we can add some muscle to them just to show that off. And there you have a centaur. I might even make his chin a little bigger, because horses should have like prominent chins, right? Can I make bird wings? That's from Andre. Yeah, I can show you how to do bird wings. That's great for a dragon, but we can do another character too that would have bird wings. And one of my favorites too, we'll do a griffin. Now, a griffin, there are different ideas on what griffins are. Some people say it's kind of got a hawk's head with, or an eagle's head with a lion's body and some wings. I mean, it really depends, but for the most part, that's a griffin. So having a griffin naturally has bird wings. So I'm going to show you how I would do it. So I'm going to start with this upside down U shape for the head. All right. And I'm going to draw some lines out, because you want this will be feathery, and it's going to go into fur. So I'm going to think about like a lion's body here, right? And I'm going to draw out the legs like so, with big feet, because lions have big feet and claws, right? And I'm going to do the back. Now, to study, I didn't pull out a line, but you should study how a lion. Let me pull up an image of a lion right now and bring it into the picture. So I got images here, and I want to pull out. I'm going to pull out this picture. I'm going to bring it in. Now this picture is going to. Whoops, sorry. This picture is going to be my reference for what I'm drawing here, and I want to think about how a cat's back leg goes, because the front legs are great out positioned like that. But if we look at a cat, it almost has that feel that we were looking at. I don't like that color for it, but for the horse, right? So if I come back a bit and then forward, and add the big feet. Now, some people give them talons, like like a bird would have. You know, again, everything's kind of a matter of opinion. So I'm going to do this, and I'll have this leg kind of straight down just because he's standing. And he'll have a lion's tail. Okay, so now we're going to make this guy a happy griffin. So for, I've been drawing on the lion, whatever. So I'm going to do my cartoon eyes, which are always circles. And I'm going to get, actually, let's make him look back at us. I think it'll add a little more humor to the image. And I'm going to give him a big, like, eagle's beak. And there would be a nostril kind of up in this direction, actually that direction right there. So seeing it from both sides, I'm going to add just a bit more texture to it. Okay. Now, oops, wrong layer. There we go. So now for something to really feel like bird wings, all right? What I like to do, and let me pull up an image for you. I like to sometimes look at the skeleton of the animals. So I'm going to pull out an image, and let's take a look. Let's take a look over here. This is a great idea. So I'm going to pull this image in, which demonstrates the difference between a bird, a bat, and a human, and how their bones are basically the same. But that's what I want. Oh, come on. Are basically the same, but they're just positioned differently, you know? And maybe I'll bring in, I don't like that type of image. Let's bring in something like this. And this gives you an idea of how the feathers come off the body. So I'll always study what I'm looking at, but because I cartoon, I'm doing what we call stylization, and I kind of make stuff up a bit as I go along, you know, because I just wanted to give it that feel. So if I look, you know, at the bird, this part right here, let me get to, am I on any layer? Yeah, I don't want to be on that layer. So this section right here is would be the shoulder, going to what would be more like the elbow right here, going up to kind of the wrist right there. So you see these three big marks are just like we have in our body, all right? We just got to draw them in the right direction. So if this is the shoulder, again, where is the shoulder blade? Coming up right about here, right? So I know the shoulder is going to come up, and it's going to start to turn. And let me turn off the lion picture. Whoops, I can't because I have some of that on there. So let me just do this. Nice. I'm just going to delete him off now because I don't need him. Let me get back to the lion picture. There we go. All right. And I'm going to come around, and I'm going to think about how this is going to feel just on the top. I'm thinking about this shape right now. So I have the top, I have it going up, it's curving up, it's going over, and now it's coming down. So I want to think about the same thing here. And this is the outside of my wing. This is the the hard upper part of the wing, where of the bone that I just drew. And if you look down on these here, they have lines that come out. Now you don't need to draw the lines. You could kind of imagine how that's going to go. And what I like to do sometimes is just draw a big curved line. All right. Why a big curved line is because I can now come in and just add some bumps to create the idea of feathers. And I don't want them to be just as big, I want them to kind of get smaller as we go inside, like a regular bird would. Excuse me. And then in here I could add, just like I made for the lizard, some of these actually give you the feeling of these give you the feeling of, I'm sorry, wrong layer. I'm just trying to erase a little bit here. What layer did I draw that on? Give me a second. Why isn't things erasing? Let's try that again. Am I on the eraser? Nothing. Oh, do I have something select? Hold on, deselect, just in case. Nope. That's that part. Okay, so with that, I should be able to erase up here, because I drew on separate layers. That's my issue. I shouldn't have. I usually keep it on. Now, that's one thing you could do, which is fine and works out well, and that's cool. And, what some people like to do, and I'll erase these here so you can see, is kind of draw some lines, kind of curvy lines going to each one. That's something you could do. That's not something I'm a fan of. But if you actually look at wings, they're layered. So I like to sometimes come in with another, just straight piece, and then maybe I'll come in and do a few small things, or just leave it alone. I could build up more layer if I want. Everything just is opinion, matter of opinion and style. So, and then you got that coming in. So you got a Griffon, and I'll give him that there. That adds that anger looking back at us. So now I got a Griffon. All right. I got about 10 minutes left before I end. I'll do one more creature, and I'm going to really try hard to play around with this. So let me take all these off and grab a just quick sip of water. So I like to think of when I do these type of things, I like to look through, like I said, different books, and right now I'm sticking to mythological creatures. So I'm not looking at, and even though they technically are, I'm not looking at creatures that are like orcs or trolls that have human qualities to them. I'm thinking really fantasy, characters, really fantastic characters that definitely have very little, if any, human characters. Like when I did the centaur, I crossed a person with a horse. There is another creature called a Harpy. It's basically a human head on a bird's body. But they've changed also in description too, so it could be just kind of a cross between some kind of predator bird and a human being. I think I'm going to try to do something cute, but is something that you wouldn't expect. So I think I'm going to start with maybe a rabbit's head. Or, you know what, let's do a frog. I know that other creature we saw kind of was frog-like. Let's do a frog. Right? I'm going to give him this big kind of froggy smile, right? And face. And my guy is going to have teeth all over the place. Kind of funny teeth. Because he's supposed to look kind of silly, this guy. And I'm going to make him cross-eyed. right? I'm going to give him... I'm probably going to do some kind of ears or horns on him. But I'm going to give him a body of... How about... You know, I'm just going to do a generic bean-shaped body for him right now. And that could be a horse, it could be a cat, it could be whatever you want it to be. And I think now, you know what I'm going to do? I'm just don't forget, I'm going to add some kind of freckles to him because he's a, you know, frogs would have warts, so you can probably see that. But I'm going to also add his nostrils over up front here. I'm going to give him horns coming off the side, almost like they look like bull horns. All right, and maybe a couple little bumps up here, maybe 3. I'm going to color in his mouth. And I'm doing these little simple things here that may change, but I'm just doing them now because I'm just thinking in my head and playing around. I think for legs, you know, I mentioned a rabbit earlier, so let's give him, or her, I don't know if this is a guy or girl, kind of rabbit feet. So I will make it kind of big like that. I don't know what I'm going to do for his, or its. I'll try to start saying it because I don't know if I'm making this a male or a female yet. I don't know if the foot should be out like that. So is this going to be a dragon? Is it going to be a new creature? All right. Maybe, ooh, I know what I want to do. Okay. So I'm going to give him arms that kind of come out like so, and they're going to be little kind of claws. Almost like this. All right. And I'm going to give him a giant squirrel tail. So he's kind of got this rabbit feature. Actually, no, let's get rid of the horns. Let's not make him dragon. We'll give him horns of not horns, ears of a rabbit, right? This one will be floppy. So what happens now is I've created this new creature that never existed before. He's got this frog-like head, this kind of squirrel-like body, but big feet like a rabbit with his ears that allow him the ability to hop. So, you know, maybe he's furry, and I'll give him an underbelly so he's got 2 different colors. So, like, when I'm going to draw him, if I was to draw him, let's not forget that line of action I mentioned, right? A long time ago. So let's have him kind of out like that. His body's going to hunch over, but his rabbit legs are going to extend, right? And his tail will probably point a little straighter up. His arms might come out like so. And he'll be over here coming out, and he's going for whatever food he eats, a nut or whatever, you know. His ears would be back if he's jumping that way. All right. So the other. Okay. So you can see what I've done here. You know, when I want to create fantasy, I want to go into fantasy worlds, which, by the way, if you were to think about it, uses Usually has like some kind of knight or a hero of some sort, maybe even a barbarian. There's usually a wizard. You can think about the props that might be in there, like castles and, you know, swords and magical items like rings and potions and whatever. You know, I mean, it's all great stuff. But I'm creating by things I know, and I'll look at images of animals and stuff, or even people, and I need these reference materials, you know, to help me create these characters that never existed before, you know. So when I look at my stuff, and I go through this stuff a lot, I'm not gonna lie. Like I have here, oh, let me pick it up. This is The Hobbit, The Desolation of Smaug Chronicles, Art and Design. Okay? So I'll pick this up. And I can go through, and right now, in this page I just happened to open to, are interiors. You know, so if I want to design for a fantasy interior, I'm going to look at things to get ideas. I'm not going to copy. It's okay to copy when you practice, but I'm not gonna copy it and make it look like someone else's work. But if I have to draw a table, I'll look at a picture of a table and make it look old, so I can think about, or if I want the wood texture to show, I'm gonna look at that type of wood and see how that texture is, you know, on it. What do I see? What kind of grain and stuff? Like here, Lake Town Guards. Ooh, almost lost the page. So this is an idea of what they would wear. How would I come up with ideas of clothing for people in fantasy? Well, I do my research and I look up what people wore during maybe medieval times, armor, maybe different cultures, and combined a couple of cultures together so that it doesn't look like it, like let's say you mix medieval England with something from medieval Asian cultures, or it would probably be more feudal if I don't know my history that well off the top of my head, but I think it would be more like feudal Japan type thing. But if you took kind of those type of cultures and mixed them together, now you can look at the clothing and say, hey, I got this interesting idea. He kind of takes influence from here, and let's say, let's say you're creating some kind of warrior. So maybe you're going to look at Japanese samurai, which is what they looked at when George Lucas looked at when they were creating Darth Vader's costume. He's basically a sci-fi samurai. Even though he's not fantasy, it's sci-fi, but same thing. So yeah, just look at those type of things. I'll pull somebody out over here. Here's a little toy of, pull out a few of my toys here. And let's get this. All right. So one of my favorite cartoon characters I mentioned to you guys is Hagar the Horrible. He's a Viking, so he looks like a cartoon stylized Viking, ready to pillage and plunder and whatever he does, right? This is a Imaginext, I believe, figure of one of my all-time favorite DC characters. I'm just taking off his magical power bands here. Dr. Fate. When Dr. Fate originally came out, the helmet that he wears is the helmet of Naboo. It's a another entity that talks with the wearer of the helmet, and it was just a basic design, but his character is supposed to come from like ancient Egypt. That's where Naboo was. So it's hard to tell, but when they redesigned him later on, they kind of gave him a little bit more with his chest plate there of an Egyptian feel to it. But my all-time favorite, and I'll grab the book right here. I have it right next to me here. My all-time favorite cartoonist is a man named Sergio Aragones. I love his work. He created a fantasy story called Gru, and you can go back and find these in stores, Amazon. Go to your local comic shop. If you don't know your local comic shop, go to comicshoplocator.com and look it up and get some of these books. And he has these very humoristic style barbarian characters, and he goes all over the world. So he's always kind of stylizing and combining. And here's a statue of Gru and his dog, you know, and another character who, at the moment, I'm just blanking on her name, but that's a barbarian woman. You see, so she's got these little, like, beaded, or I don't know what kind, rock. I don't know. Like her belt has these beaded type of looks here. Same thing with her earrings. She's got a large sword. Okay, she's dressed for movement, but also look at her boots. They're open in the feet, so it kind of just gives a feeling of something very old and fantasy-like here. When we look at Gru, he's an overweight character. He's barefoot as well. He's got samurai. Well, samurai swords he's got, but he's a barbarian. So that's what I'm talking about, mixing cultures. Take a look and see what's around you, what you can do. Fantasy is about, using your imagination, going and using things that wouldn't normally exist in the real world. And I'm talking things like magic and dragons and things like that. And it's usually set more in like a medieval time period, but there's no reason you can't do a modern day fantasy where these characters exist, and how are they being used in modern times. Just play around, use your imagination. The more you study images of other animals and creatures, the more you look at books of art of books, get inspiration, get ideas. All fantastic stuff. Read the comics, read other books that are fantasy based, and it'll start inspiring you. If you're a D&D person, meaning Dungeons and Dragons, the imagery is all over the place. Playing it, you use your imagination. So that's all I got today. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I'll be back on Monday with another topic, maybe science fiction. I don't know. We'll see what Monday brings. But in the meantime, just keep drawing, and I'll see you guys later.